morning. Hey, good morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome to everyone who is here in person, and welcome also to those of you who are joining us on YouTube, whether that would be today, during real time, or sometime in the future. My name is Linda Phippen. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee. Today, I am pleased to be assisting with the service. At Westside, there is room for all who choose to be here. You need not hold a specific belief or follow a particular spiritual path. However you identify yourself, we welcome you to join us in a spirit of openness and acceptance. After the service, there will be coffee and light snacks and conversation. If you are here in person, we hope you will join us. There are announcements in your order of service or on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. You can also find announcements on our website in our weekly e-newsletter, which you can subscribe to using the QR code in your order of service or on our website. I do want to call out one specific announcement, and that's just to keep in mind that our auction, a major fundraising event for us for the year, will be on February 1st. If you have things that you can donate to the auction, or you have ideas of services you might offer, there is a sign-up sheet in the back of the room on the table near the boxes. And now I'm going to turn things over to Reverend Carol.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you this morning. If I haven't met you yet, I'm Reverend Carol Bodeau. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm privileged to serve here as minister. I want to say special good morning to anyone who's with us virtually. We're glad you're here as well. So, our theme for this year, which you may or may not have heard, is neighbors. For the whole year, we're talking about how to be better neighbors, how to be neighbors in our communities, also in our families, in our state, in our nation, in our world. So that means that we like to spend time learning about things that we don't already know about. Things that may be religious practices, cultural traditions, things that are not necessarily the things we are already all doing. So today we're talking about Kwanzaa, which is, it's not that new of a holiday, but it's one that has only in the last 20 or 30 years been gaining more and more awareness. So I'm going to invite our bowl to sound, as I invite our bowl to sound, what I'd like you to do is think of one neighbor. Now, that can be somebody who lives in your neighborhood, or it can be someone who is in your work, or someone you think of as a neighbor that you don't know very much about. And just as the bowl sings, I invite you to cultivate some curiosity. What might you like to learn about neighbors that you haven't really learned yet?
So this morning, Tremaine is going to be lighting our chalice. The reading for the chalice lighting comes actually from the readings in our gray hymnal, but it actually comes from the Bible, from the book of Mark, chapter 4. I chose this reading because the beginning of the Kwanzaa tradition seemed to me to be like spreading seeds on the ground. It goes like this. If someone would scatter seeds on the ground and would sleep and rise night and day, the seed would sprout and grow. The earth produces itself, first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear. When the grain is ripe, the harvest has come. Tremaine is also going to light our 2 community candles. that we light at every service. One of them is to recognize and be mindful of the bad things that happen among our near neighbors and those far away, but also to remind us that not to forget that there are many people and groups and institutions working to alleviate those bad things, and there are ways in which we ourselves can help as individuals or as a congregation.
So, happy holidays, everyone. Happy holidays. I know that in a UU congregation, there are a lot of different holidays we might be celebrating, right? So there are holidays like, some people celebrate Diwali, which is a festival of lights in the Hindu tradition that's earlier in the season and when the days are starting to get darker. And some people celebrate Yule, some people celebrate Christmas, some people celebrate Hanukkah. Some of us are like equal opportunity celebrators and want to celebrate all of them, right? So this is a season that's often described as a season of lights, when the holiday traditions involve the lighting of candles, the putting of lights in various places around our homes and in our community gatherings. So today we're going to talk about a holiday of lights that's relatively new, but that is increasingly important for us to understand. So I took the title, the official title for today's service is We Are Each Other's Harvest, a celebration of Kwanzaa. So Kwanzaa is a tradition that's been around for about 60 years now, actually. But I didn't know about it. I certainly didn't know about it when I was a child. It's increasingly well known now, especially with social media. It's easier for people to learn more about traditions that aren't happening in their own families. But I think it's useful for us to learn a little bit about these traditions, to understand our neighbors in our families, in our communities, and in our world. So that phrase, we are each other's harvest, is from a poem by 20th century African-American poet Gwendolyn Brooks. Anybody know who Gwendolyn Brooks is? She's not something that a lot of us know about, but she was a wonderful African-American poet. She grew up in Chicago and became one of the most powerful voices in the 20th century in the African-American artistic community. She was the first Black Pulitzer Prize winner. She was the Poet Laureate of Illinois, the Poet Laureate Consultant for the Library of Congress, and the first African-American woman to be inducted into the American Academy of the Arts. So, at the end of this sermon, I'm going to suggest that you all go find another Gwendolyn Brooks poem to read, because she was cool. Okay. She was a teacher, and she was an activist, and she was the one who coined this phrase, we are each other's harvest. It's from a poem entitled Paul Robeson, which has become a real touchstone of the modern movement for honoring African American cultural heritage. So here's the poem. This is Paul Robeson by Gwendolyn Brooks. This was published in 1970. That time, we all heard it, cool and clear, cutting across the hot grit of the day. The major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bale and barge, and other symptoms of an old despond. Warning in music words, devout and large, that we are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. So what does the poem refer to? And who is this Paul Robeson guy? And why is he so important to Gwendolyn Brooks and to understanding Kwanzaa? So, anybody know who Paul Robeson was? Couple people know who Paul Robeson was. So Paul Robeson was a young Black man born in 1898, just after the Civil War. Okay? his fame started when he was relatively young, and then in his older life, he changed what he became famous for. He was born in 1898, and his father, William, was a minister, but William Robeson, he was from the Igbo tribe of Nigeria. His family came from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria, and William had been born into slavery. He had escaped slavery on a plantation as a teenager and had fled north, where he became a minister in New Jersey. Married and had a couple kids, one of whom was his son Paul. Paul's mother died when he was a young man, and so William Robeson was raising his children on his own. And so, of course, this was happening in a time when it was still pretty difficult to be an African-American young man in the U.S., even in the North where they lived. But Paul Robeson was a scholar and an athlete, and he was offered a scholarship to Rutgers University, where he started in 1915. And when he got there, so imagine this, it's 1915, this young man arrives at Rutgers University. He's not only the only black student on campus at that time, but he's only the third black student since the school had been founded in 1766. Okay? So he went there, he was invited to be on the football team there. He had a scholarship to play football, but the white players didn't want him there. So as soon as he showed up, they beat him up so badly that he was bedridden for the first week and a half of school. But he persisted. He went on to become a star player, making the All-American team twice. He was also valedictorian of his class at Rutgers. He went to Columbia Law School and became a very successful musician and actor. Now, those of us who watch old movies know Paul Robeson because of a particular old movie and a particular song. Anybody remember Showboat? Old Man River, he don't. You know that song? That's Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson became most famous in his young life for playing popular roles in which he represented African American men. But he would say in his career that he wanted to make clear by the roles he chose and the roles he played and how he played them, that African American men and women and people were just as intelligent, just as competent, just as valorous. He wanted to show depth and character that was often denied in the popular culture to African American people. So he used acting as a way to dispel biases. And of course, from our contemporary standards, that film, Showboat, which he performed the theater version of that first. He performed on Broadway and a number of things. But that particular show, if you watch it now, some of our modern sentiments would make us kind of go, ooh, I don't know. But for the time, he was playing a character in a way that had not been portrayed before. Now, as he aged, his career in theater gave way to a career as an activist, right? So if we listen to Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, she says, that time we all heard it cool and clear, cutting across the hot grid of day, the major voice, the adult voice. And she's saying, Paul Robeson in his adult life, foregoing the rolling river, foregoing the tearful tale of the bale and barge, warning in music words about something bigger. So in his later life, he became quite an activist, a civil rights activist, and he spoke out a lot. He got himself in a lot of trouble. He spoke directly to presidents, including Harry Truman. He advocated a lot for anti-lynching laws. And he was actually interrogated by the House Committee on Un-American Activities. He traveled to Russia and got himself in trouble with America for going to Russia, where he said he got a better reception than he'd ever had in the United States. And he really lived these values. He spoke out for equality, and for the African American community to really take care of each other, to advocate together. He was her model when she said, "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond." She saw him as an exemplar of those values. Now, that phrase, "we are each other's harvest," has become somewhat tied to the celebration of Kwanzaa because of the phrase harvest. The African American cultural holiday, Kwanzaa, was created in 1966 by a Black activist named Dr. Malana Karenga. And the name of the holiday is taken from a Swahili phrase, okay? Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits, first harvest. And the holiday is modeled after harvest festivals that come in slightly different forms, but from all over Africa. I don't know. I couldn't find out if Gwendolyn Brooks was specifically referring to Kwanzaa when she wrote that poem about Paul Robeson. So Kwanzaa was first created in 1966, and the poem was published in 1970. It's unclear if there was an explicit connection between the two, but certainly there's this cultural theme at that time for people like Gwendolyn Brooks, cultivating an African American and even a Pan-African cultural identity, a sense of history, a sense of heritage, a sense of shared values, rather than just being sort of that contrasting image of, we're not what the white people say we are, but here's who we say we are. Here's what our community says about ourselves. So the holiday is now much more widely celebrated, not just in the U.S., but around the world, although it started in the U.S. and is celebrated more in the U.S. than in other places. And it honors a set of particular values that center on self-determination and community coherence. We are in the middle of Kwanzaa right now. It's celebrated in the week between December 26th and January 1st. And the ideas and concepts of Kwanzaa are all expressed in Swahili, which is one of the most widely spoken languages in Africa. It's a common language that, even though many peoples have their own local languages, they also speak Swahili. So Linda's gonna light the candles of our Kinara as we learn about what the 7 core principles of Kwanzaa are. The principles that form the core of this tradition were drawn from communitarian values found throughout the African continent. Each of the 7 days of Kwanzaa is dedicated to one of these principles. So the Kinara, the candle holder, is one of the most important symbols of the holiday. The first quality, the value that's important in Kwanzaa is called umoja, which means unity. It's about striving for and maintaining unity in the family, in the community, in the nation, and in the identity of being African American or of African descent. So it's this idea of like bonding together and creating coherence as a community. The second value is kujichagulia, which is self-determination. Being able to define and name ourselves, to create who we want to be known as, to speak for ourselves, to honor our identity as created by us, not as a foil to anyone else or in contrast to anyone else or how someone else wants to define us. The third value is ujima, collective work and responsibility. That value is to build and maintain community together, to make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. The fourth value is ujama, which is cooperative economics. So this is very practical, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. The fifth value, naya, purpose, to make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. So this is, notice that these are all about the community working together as a community. That's very different than what we think of as American individualism. The values of Western civilization are very individualistic. These values are all very community-oriented. Value number 6, Kumba, creativity. To do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than the way we inherited it. So to cultivate that creativity in a way that serves the larger good and the larger community. And the 7th principle, Imani, faith. To believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So when Kwanzaa was first created, the person who created it, Dr. Karenga, was an ardent activist. And he, over time, sort of shifted to a less, we'll call it less radical version of celebrating Kwanzaa. At first, he said, you can't celebrate Christmas and also celebrate Kwanzaa. That's not okay. You gotta choose. And then over time, he said, well, actually, you could probably celebrate both. But at first, there was a certain separatism in his message about Kwanzaa. It has become more popular and more inclusive since about the 80s, when he said, yeah, people in our community also want to celebrate Christmas because Christianity is really important in our community. So he over time, just like Paul Robeson, changed in the way he gave his message, but the core principles never changed. If you Google Kwanzaa, you're going to see there's some wonderful, amazing educational videos and things out there for children to understand the core principles and artwork. So as I said, one of the most familiar symbols of Kwanzaa, the kinara, is something you'll see a lot. Kwanzaa celebrations also include a few other key symbols usually. One is a woven mat called a mkeka, on which harvest items are placed, okay? You might see corn, which is called mahindi, and in that tradition, the corn represents children, the potential for new birth and new growth. You might see a kikombe cha umoji, which is a particular kind of cup for commemorating and giving thanks to ancestors, and various other kinds of gifts. And people personalize these in their homes and their communities. Now, I think it's important for us to learn about this tradition and this celebration. Not because we should, I don't feel like I should be celebrating Kwanzaa necessarily, because I'm not African American or Pan-African. I don't claim it as my tradition. But I do think as a neighbor, I have family members who are African American. I have neighbors who are African American. I have people in my community who are. So I think it's important for me to understand this tradition and to include it when I think about the broader holiday season. And of course, those core values of Kwanzaa could be meaningful to any one of us. These are things we can all learn from. We would all do well to remember the 7 principles in a more general sense. We can specifically ask ourselves, what can we learn from the African American community that we are either part of or connected to, neighbors with? What can we learn from that? And how can we support our neighbors in that community? Family members, friends, and honoring their cultural heritage. So I have a few possible homework assignments for all of us, regardless of how we identify in our own cultural identity. Here are a few things you might consider doing in the next few days in honor of Kwanzaa. Learn something new about African American history or culture. Just choose to learn something. Read a book, listen to a podcast, listen to some music that gives you a broader and deeper understanding of African American creativity, history, identity, etc. You could just read a Gwendolyn Brooks poem. She's an amazing poet. Learn a little bit more about Paul Robeson. Learn if any of your family, friends, or neighbors are celebrating Kwanzaa, and be curious about what that tradition means for them. And here's another really great option for us here at Westside. We can all learn more about the bottom. So in our justice and generosity partnerships, we are just finishing the fall quarter where our partner has been Mobile Meals. But starting next week, we shift to our winter quarter partner, which is the Bottom. And here's their mission statement. The Bottom is a nonprofit cultural organization serving our community through our Black affirming bookshop and arts programming. Rooted in place justice, we stand to build community, celebrate culture, and engage the creativity of Black people in Knoxville. We strive to cultivate a sense of belonging, togetherness, and safety for Black people in Knoxville and beyond. So we've been partnering with the Bottom for a few years now, and we'll be learning more about them and their work in the coming weeks. This is a partnership that has been really beneficial, I will say, to me personally, helping our congregation think about racial justice issues, because the education that they have brought us has been wonderful. And we will probably be inviting their Director of Operations, Khalil White, to come again and speak with us again sometime in the next couple of months. So there are a couple of ways you might support the Bottom right now. If you've never been over to their location, they have a wonderful bookshop. The bookshop is absolutely wonderful. So you can visit the bookshop and support them by just getting a book. Their bookshop is all about honoring the voices of African American writers for children and young adults and adults. The art there is incredible. So you might make a trip over there. You can also support the Bottom by supporting their 5-year anniversary campaign. So this is happening right now, and it's only going on. Let's see if we've got it. Yes, Brad's put up a QR code for us and more information about it. If this is something you care about, they are having, their 5th anniversary just happened, and they are having a campaign to try to get support through, I think it's through January 4th maybe. So they're trying to get, and you can, if you go on the website, you can see how they're doing on this campaign. They want to really continue to do their work and expand their work. If anybody here is familiar with the Tennessee Valley UU Church, one of the key people from Tennessee Valley UU, Elandria Williams, who was an African-American leader in our Unitarian Universalist movement, he died about 3 years ago, I think, as a young person. But they were a very active member of the African-American cultural and political and artistic community, and also a key leader in Unitarian Universalism. When he passed, the Bottom, with the support of Tennessee Valley UU, put in a special reading room in the Bottom named in Elandria's memory. So there's a strong connection between that organization and Unitarian Universalism. So we can support them directly in this campaign. And of course, in the next quarter, we will be supporting the Bottom as our justice and generosity partner. And the way that works is that the board and you as a congregation have already affirmed that we commit a certain baseline amount of money that we contribute to them every year. But during the next 3 months, any additional justice and generosity donations will go directly to the Bottom in addition to what we've already promised. So there are lots of ways that you can support the larger neighborhood community, the African American and the Pan-African, and what we say when we say African descended, people who are not necessarily American citizens, but who are of African descent, who are living in our area. There are lots of people who are in that situation as well. So we can support that larger community in a lot of ways, but these are important neighbors for us to be thinking about. So I want to close. We're having a shortish service today because I know what it's like holiday-wise. Everybody's already full. So we're going to close today with some words from Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson said, "I shall take my voice wherever there are those who want to hear the melody of freedom or words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail. So I'm going to invite you to stand if you're so inclined. And you can join hands, or you can hold somebody else's hand, or just your own, whichever makes you happy. This is a little moment we get to act like neighbors and community members and cultivate a practice of, it's really true. I know that there's flu and stuff out there. You can hold your own hand. It's okay. It's really okay. Because whether you're holding hands or not, look around at your neighbors. This morning in our spiritual practices, we were telling stories about the past, and it's shocking how little we know about each other's stories. I guarantee you that there are people in this room who are your neighbors who have stories you cannot imagine. So, as we go out into this week, heading into the new year, let's make a commitment to get to know our neighbors better. Let's make a commitment to learn about those in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our larger communities that we don't know very much about. Let's do that with curiosity and with the willingness to cultivate, as Paul Robeson said, courage and hope in the face of fear and inspiration to make the world a better place. Go in peace, go in passion, and everybody have a happy and safe New Year's.